Have you ever thought about how much your routine ultimately shapes your success or failure? It's kind of wild when you break it down. I used to think routines were just boring, kind of repetitive things we do because we have to, and some are. But then I realized they're really the backbone of our lives. You are where you are today due to the result of the millions of decisions that you have made, many of which are driven by those routines. If you're like me, some routines are positive, some are not positive, and in different seasons of life, they may be easier or harder to accomplish. As Americans, we don't always have the healthiest routines. We drink too much, we don't sleep enough, and on average spend 7 hours per day on a screen. So what does all of this mean for you? And how do you make improvements on it? To answer that very question and to discuss this further, I'm joined by a special guest. Creative Planning Wealth Manager Dan Pallison is a doctor of psychology and a certified financial planner. Dan, thank you for joining me back here again on Rethink Your Money.
Oh, so great to be back, John. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Dan. Well, this is great timing for our discussion because I have a bunch of kids. I know you have a couple at home, and they've been out for the summer, and I'm off my routine, and I need to figure out how to get back on it. Because whether it's our lives in general or how we handle our money as investors, we need healthy habits and positive routines.
Oh my goodness, this is so timely. And I don't even think we have to say it. I love my kids. I know you love your kids, but my kids' school starts pretty early. So they're back in school now. So I am back in a routine, and oh my goodness, it is good for everybody.
Yes,
everybody, my kids included.
How can routines aid in their success?
We tend to wake up around the same time, do the same thing, eat the same type of breakfast, brush our teeth the same way, drive to work in the same route. And they're really important. And it goes back to like our brain's capacity to make decisions throughout the day. If we had to like mindfully choose every single thing in front of us, it would overwhelm us. We wouldn't get anything done. So routines are automatic, but also really valuable. They help us get through the day. And a good routine is just that. It brings about really good outcomes, and a bad routine can bring about really bad outcomes. And so what I've explored with my financial planning clients, how are the routines, or what are the routines that are bringing value to financial outcomes?
But you make an important point, because if you're not careful, because many of these routines are automated and on autopilot, it's easy to fall into some negative routines as well. Before you know it, you're going to bed at midnight because you're binging on Netflix, and now you're not getting up in the morning to do your workout because you're too tired, or you're overspending and running up money on a credit card. And all of a sudden you wake up one day and say, I've gotten in some bad habits.
Absolutely. And that's the whole thing about an action or a decision. It's rare that you feel the direct outcome in that moment. Staying up late to binge Netflix one night, you're a little tired the next day. But no, you're absolutely right. Over and over and over again, when it becomes a routine and when it becomes a system or a habit, we can see the negative outcomes of that. Back to finance, clients that for the most part are doing great. They're working hard. They're putting money away. But part of their routine is maybe every evening they're consuming financial news, and a lot of it, right?
Well, that's really good for peace of mind. You can figure out all the right stocks to buy and when to get in and out of the market and which way it's moving next and what's happening with the economy. Just spend all that time all day watching CNBC.
Yeah, they have that informational advantage that's not available to anybody else out there. No, but you watch this, maybe you're interested, you watch it a little bit here and there. You may not act out of it, but when you're watching it, consuming it every single day, you're much more likely over time to tinker with your investments, with your accounts. And we've seen study after study show that the more you tinker, the more unfavorable your outcomes are. And so that's a really good example of a small act that becomes a habit that then can turn into some pretty detrimental impacts on your finances.
We don't often feel the negative impact immediately, in some cases, even for several years. And this is classic in the financial world of compound interest. We understand how that works. The same is true with our decisions. Those that we make today, what's the compound impact 20 years from now? In fact, this past Sunday in church, our pastor had a quote that I pulled out my phone and jotted in my notes because I thought it was so good and it applies to what we're talking about today. He said, sin would have far fewer takers if the cost was paid up front. Same is true with our money. We wouldn't make the same choices today, myself included, if immediately you felt the full effect of it. So how can we counteract that, Dan?
This might be my favorite quote of all time, James Clear, Atomic Habits. And he says, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And to your point, we don't get that immediate feedback. If I go work out, I don't then take my shirt off right after the workout and see ripped abs like this has. And if I did, and if anyone else did, they'd be working out all the time. You couldn't get people out of gyms.
Yep.
Everyone that I work with have really lofty goals or admirable goals for their lives, for their retirement, for their finances. Like everyone wants to do well. So it's not a goal problem. It's a systems problem. We're not great at creating systems. And to your point, John, it's because we don't have that immediate feedback. But getting into those routines, those systems that give us a little advantage every day really, really adds up.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to say it once more just to make sure no one missed that. And by the way, a fantastic book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. That's brilliant. Dan, let's transition over to the impact that retirement has on disrupting routines. We spoke about our kids being out of school, and it's only a couple of months, but that certainly disrupts the normal flow of a family. Retirement, though, isn't a couple of months. It can be 30 years. And from the normal cadence of life of the previous few decades, it's very different. How do you see that as a routine disruptor, and how can retirees not only guard against that, but thrive in that new dynamic?
I like how you asked that, and I like how you threw in that word at the end, thrive, because there's this build up to retirement, especially if someone has a retirement date. And what happens is there's a lot of time freedom, abundance of time, but you lose the routine. A lot of people lose the work that added value. It added to their identity. And so when they retire, yeah, they have more time to do the things they want to do, but they start to lose the sense of who they are. So social psychologists and other psychologists have run a lot of studies, and basically we've boiled well-being or thriving down to three areas: pleasure, connection, relationships, and then the third one would be meaning or purpose. And in retirement, a lot of people focus on pleasure. When I retire, I'm going to go travel. I'm going to hit my bucket list items. I'm going to golf. I'm going to do all these things that I want to do. I'm going to play pickleball. So they're excited about the pleasure, but they lose the routine that has brought about relationship and connection, like coworkers, but also losing your identity and connecting to something larger than yourself. What I see in retirement as the most important thing to do is to build a routine where you are intentional about maintaining connections and relationships with others, and also pursuing something greater than yourself, whether this is spiritual or part of your community, or making sure that what you're doing a little bit every day or every week is adding to your sense of not just pleasure, but connection and purpose.
You are absolutely right. There's such an emptiness. I've seen it firsthand with clients. They love to golf, but once they've golfed 6 days per week for 2 years straight, now I know, I digress here for a moment. You and I love golf, and we have a bunch of kids and other responsibilities that don't allow us to play as much as we would like. So in a way, it sounds amazing, right? But even the most avid golfer, and I'm just using golf as an example, insert whatever else in here, you oftentimes wake up a couple of years in and think to yourself, I feel a little unfulfilled, even though my handicap has dropped. This isn't providing me with the satisfaction that I thought it would when I imagined retirement. And I've seen it create anxiety and even depression due to that lack of purpose. I remember seeing a quote from Will Smith in his biography where he said, I was unhappy, but I thought it was because I wasn't rich enough, and I wasn't dating the right people, and I wasn't quite an A-lister at the level that I wanted to be. And then he said, you want to get really depressed? Achieve all of those things and have everyone around you telling you that you've reached the summit, and you look around and you're still unfulfilled, you're still not happy. That's when depression really sets in. And that can happen in retirement because you've delayed and delayed all of this gratification, saved money to provide for financial security, and then you get in retirement and you're 6 months in, or you're a year or two in, and because you're seeking pleasure, which I think is very common in our society, it's not surprising to me at all that people wake up and think to themselves, isn't there more? And then they sit around, with all this additional time that they weren't used to having in their routines, and they talk about the good old days and the craziness of raising kids. It's just another reminder to enjoy every season because each has its pros and its cons. And finding healthy routines that advance the purposeful, meaningful parts of your life is really where you're going to find ultimate peace. So specific to routines, Dan, how can people improve them?
Work backwards. If we're playing with this idea that the good life includes pleasure, connection to others, and connection to a greater purpose, then examine what are you doing every day, and the things that you're doing, are they enhancing one of those areas? So back to the easy example that in retirement, a lot of people naturally pursue the pleasure because they put it off. But what are you doing on a daily or weekly basis to increase your connection? When you retire, are you still calling the friends, the colleagues that you've made along the way and keeping that connection there? When you get in the car to make your coffee run in the morning in retirement, are you shooting out a text or calling someone because you have some time? Again, doing that one time, it might feel okay, but creating the habit of intentionally connecting with others or joining an organization or joining a church that is in alignment with what you believe, these are the things over time that can really increase and enhance your well-being, especially in retirement.
It's great. Be intentional, because in retirement, it takes more intentionality due to the fact that you likely won't have as many organic connections and opportunities at interactions. You're more isolated. And to your point, build that into your routine. I love how you said that in a way that's doable and repeatable over time to maximize true joy. These are great tips, fantastic to reflect on the value of our routines, even the ones that we're not paying attention to, and the impact that they have, either positive or negative, on our money. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, Dan, as always, with the listeners and myself on Rethink Your Money.
Yeah, thanks, John.